If I were to tell you that the 5-13 San Antonio Spurs were having one of the most successful seasons in the NBA so far, what would you say to that? You'd probably think I'm gassing it up, I'm exaggerating, just straight up clueless. I can understand that. I won't take it personally, because if someone else told me that a 5-13 team was also having a very successful season, I would look at them a little bit funny. And to know this opinion wasn't formed after their win against the Celtics. Oh my god, they beat the Celtics. Dejounte Murray is the second coming of Russell Westbrook. Well, Dejounte Murray's performances are a reason why I'm high on this team and the season they've had so far, but it's not that result, it's not really the record, it's what they're doing collectively, and it's what some of their young players are doing. Now, before I get into that, if you could drop a like on the video, that would be much appreciated. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Make content like this literally pretty much every single day. A lot of Spurs, a decent amount of Spurs content as well, so that would be cool. But let's get into it. Now, when we talk about a successful season, we have to kind of understand what this team was trying to achieve. Obviously, they're not going to have the same season as a team like the Golden State Warriors or the Brooklyn Nets, whatever. Just those teams that are towards the top, trying to win a ton of games and trying to win a championship. But if you're a team like San Antonio, they got rid of DeMar DeRozan. They got rid of LaMarcus Aldridge. They got rid of Patty Mills, Rudy Gay. All of their veterans, pretty much, they brought in Thaddeus Young and guys like Doug McDermott, kind of, but most of their veteran guys have gone, in particular DeMar DeRozan. Now, with this all in mind, a successful season for the Spurs is different, as I mentioned. It's about developing their young players, and honestly, let's be honest, not winning a ton of games is successful. That is what they want to do. They want to be competitive, and for the most part, they've been competitive. The last 4 or 5 games before the Celtics game, they'd struggled a little bit, but to start the season, they actually had a really solid net rating, a really solid defensive rating, which I don't think really matters a ton, because again, they don't need to win a lot of games. It's more so about how individuals are performing, but if they can be competitive and lose quite a lot of games and potentially get a top pick whilst developing players, that's a successful season. That is a successful season, and that's why I think they're having one. And I'll talk about Murray a bit later, because he's been their number 1 guy, but in my opinion, probably their number 2 guy this season who doesn't get any talk. Like, I hear people talking about the likes of Dejounte, Keldon Johnson, even Jakob Poeltl at times. I don't hear anyone talking about Devin Vassell. I'm sure Spurs fans, you guys, I'm sure you talk about him, that's fine. I'm not saying that doesn't happen. But outside of Spurs fandom, I don't hear anyone talking about Devin Vassell, who in just year 2 has absolutely taken a massive leap. He's gone from 5.5 points a game to over 12 points a game. He's coming off the bench. He could be starting for sure. He's playing at that level, but he's not starting right now. But he's improved every aspect of his game. Every single aspect, particularly as a scorer, and I think he's been their second best player so far. I know, people might say Keldon Johnson, maybe Jakob Poeltl, but I think Devin Vassell has been really impactful off the bench. Whenever he's on the floor, they're a better offense, they're a better team when he's on the floor, when you look at the numbers and when you just watch the games, because what he's doing right now is he's improved his pull-up shooting a lot. He's doubled his attempts. He's shooting about 10% higher than last season, at about 50% from both pull-up 2s and 3s, which is very good. Very good. He's really good at getting the ball off the catch, relocating, and then taking a couple of sharp dribbles and getting to his spot. He's not someone that's going to hit you with a hezzy, all of those moves. He might do it occasionally, but he's not someone with a ton of moves to get to his spot. But what he does do well is he's decisive. He'll make a couple of quick movements, get to his spot, raise up, shoot over guys. Now going forward, maybe that's the next step he needs to take to become a 20 to 22 point per game scorer. Just throwing that out there. But as of right now, he's a good catch and shoot 3-point guy, the second best on the team behind Doug McDermott, who's obviously an absolute sniper. He's good off the pull-up. He's a good defender. He was a good defender in year 1. That's what was getting him minutes. And that's why it's so impressive about Vassell's development, because last season, he showed glimpses, but he wasn't fantastic on offense. Most of what he was doing was good defensively in terms of in the passing lanes. He's intelligent off the ball. He rotates well. He looked like a professional on the defensive end of the floor from the minute he stepped foot into the league. But now offensively, you pair that with what he's been doing defensively since he started in the league. Now he's starting to look like a bit of the complete package that you would have hoped for when you drafted him. And I think this is pretty much as you could have hoped for if you're San Antonio. I know some people want to see everyone on a roster improve, which is just, it's kind of unreasonable. I know they got rid of DeMar DeRozan and Patty Mills and all of these guys, and there is more opportunity, but I would have rathered, if I'm San Antonio, see 2 guys take clear leaps. Keldon, that would have been nice if he took a bit of a bigger leap. I'll talk about Keldon. He hasn't been bad by any means, and his numbers have gone up, his 3-point shooting has gone up, but he hasn't exactly improved to the level of Murray and of Devin Vassell. But if I see two guys that take clear leaps into becoming potential stars, because I do see all-star potential for Vassell and Dejounte Murray, whether they live up to that, I don't know. But at the very least, with Vassell, you've got someone, I think I look at the Mikal Bridges kind of mold. Now you might be thinking, oh, he's already averaging like similar points to Mikal Bridges. If Bridges was on a different team to Phoenix, he could easily be putting up close to 20 points a game efficiently while playing good defense. And we've seen exactly what that kind of player does for a team in a long playoff run. You love to have these kind of players. Whether Vassell becomes a better creator, I could see him hopefully taking a bit of a jump as a passer because he does make some nice reads, but whether he becomes someone who can average 3 to 4 assists or just stays at around 2 a game might determine how good he becomes. Obviously, his ability to create off the dribble more consistently and attack the rim, maybe get a bit stronger and get to the free throw line. Those are the factors that take him from someone who's going to be 13 to 14 points a game, which is his floor right now, a good 3-and-D wing that can create for himself. That's the worst case scenario for Devin Vassell. And if that's the worst case scenario, that's pretty damn good. So that's why it's successful for San Antonio to have him take a leap and Dejounte Murray as well. That's all you really would have hoped for. A couple of these guys to show star potential on a team that doesn't win too many games and you hopefully get a top pick. Dejounte Murray, talked about him, he's taken a bit of a leap. Mainly as a playmaker, I'd say his scoring is still much the same in terms of efficiency, in terms of as a mid-range shooter, a pull-up shooter. Not much has changed. He's just taking more shots without DeMar DeRozan, but his assist-to-turnover ratio has been really good. He's creating plays for other guys, the likes of Pirtle. He's a guy who creates a lot of plays for the likes of Devin Vassell, driving into the paint and kicking it out to open shooters. So I like what Murray has been able to do. And honestly, I'm not too concerned about his scoring. I don't think Murray's a guy that you want to be a 25-point per game scorer. I just don't think he's ever going to be that efficient scorer. So if he can hover around 16 to 17 points a game, and at the moment, he's taking more shots than probably would be ideal because he really doesn't have a choice. They don't have a ton of other creation. And some games it works. We've seen it against the Bucks. We've seen it against the Celtics. He can take over. And I'm not saying he's a bad scorer, but he's not a fantastic one. But if he can become a 16 to 17 point per game scorer on relatively decent efficiency, whilst being the good passer and playmaker he is, and obviously one of the better defenders in the league, I think that's what I'd prefer from Murray. Not to be someone that needs to score 30 points a game, but similar to, I guess, a Russell Westbrook in that term. You've seen him compared. And Russell Westbrook, in my opinion, is at his best when he's not actually scoring a ton. Except some games, but for the most part, I like Russell Westbrook when he's facilitating, similar to Dejounte Murray. So those two guys have been the clear standouts for San Antonio. Two guys that I really wanted to talk about because I've been impressed with what they've done. Keldon Johnson, may as well touch on him. Don't think he's been bad by any means. He hasn't taken the same leap as these guys. Averaging 15 points a game. His three-point shooting is up. Still think he's got a little bit of tunnel vision. He can get a little bit of tunnel vision when he's attacking the rim, which can work out sometimes, and it's a reason why he's really good on the boards, and sometimes you end up with like 15 boards despite his size, and it's a reason why he can get inside and get to the free throw line. But at the same time, if he could round that out and to become a little bit of a better playmaker, and just in terms of rounding out his game, that could be something that's the next step for Keldon Johnson. Definitely not giving up on him. He's been good. He's definitely been good. He just hasn't been great. But if you have those three guys, those guys are the three main core pieces. Derek White's been disappointing. Jakob Poeltl's been solid. Lonnie Walker's been a little bit disappointing. But the reality is, you're never really going to get all five guys from that young core to turn out well. So if you get three of these guys that show star potential, and maybe one of them turns into an all-star, and the other two turn into really good role players, think of Phoenix. They've had the same thing happen. Devin Booker became the star, and then you have Mikal Bridges and DeAndre Ayton, who are really high-end role players, we would say, with maybe a little bit of all-star potential. If they can get the same thing in San Antonio, that's how you rebuild a team. Because through free agency, you'll get the role players. You'll get the guys through the draft as well. Hopefully they get another top-end pick, and hopefully they can bring in maybe a shooting guard like a Jaden Hardy or a Chet Holmgren who can space the floor and block shots. I don't know too much about the draft, but there's definitely going to be some good prospects. San Antonio are a team that I have trust in. Speaking of trust, Josh Primo, I know he's been good for the Austin G League team. Cannot say I've watched a minute of him play. I would not lie to you like that. I'm not a Spurs fan. I like the Spurs. I watch their games, but I'm not watching the G League team. But I know he's been putting up some decent numbers, and hopefully he can figure it out in the NBA at some point. But I have trust in the Spurs' development, their drafting, and their free agency that if these three guys pan out the way you would hope, then they can work around it as well. That's why I think it's been a successful season for the Spurs. I don't care about their record. You'll see flashes of them playing really well, like we saw particularly in the first quarter against the Celtics. They were fantastic, and then managed to come back as well late with Dejounte Murray. But for the most part, if they can stay towards the bottom, get a top-end pick, continue to develop the likes of Devin Vassell, Dejounte Murray, and Keldon Johnson, and then that's kind of all. That's all I want to see from San Antonio. And that's exactly what I've seen. Successful seasons mean different things for different teams. Right now, San Antonio are having a successful season in my eyes. I think maybe Spurs fans will agree. I don't know. Let me know below. Have a good day.